Hi everyone, this is Angela from the Kaukauna Public Library. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight to join me for our tutorial of our mini wooden sign painting class. Now we were supposed to offer this class back in May, but we're unable to, so we're so excited to be able to offer you this as a kit and a virtual tutorial right now. So I hope you've had a chance to pick up your kit. I'm going to go through everything that's in it and then I'll walk you through how to finish this project. So in your kit that you picked up, you'll have your basic piece of wood, 4 containers of paint. You'll have brown, white, pink, and then an accent color. I chose blue, but you would have been able to choose an accent color when you registered. You'll also have a foam brush in your kit and your stencil. So I created this stencil on a Cricut Explore Air. If you have that at home, you are likely familiar with how this works. This is just a stencil vinyl that I purchased on Amazon, and then there's also contact paper on top, and I'll talk through in the tutorial why we use that and how it works. If you didn't have a vinyl cutting machine like this, you could also create a stencil at home using, just print something off on the computer and then use contact paper and trace it and cut it out by hand, or with an X-Acto knife. But this is in your kit for you. What will you need from home? A couple of things. You'll need a little bit of water. You won't even use this much. You'll need some tissue paper or a paper towel, something to remove paint with. I'm using a coffee filter. And then also a tool for weeding and removing the little tiny pieces in your stencil. So this is a tool that's actually specifically designed for that task, but you could also use an X-Acto knife, a razor blade if you have one, or a seam ripper if you have one in your sewing kit. So that's everything that you'll need for this project. Continue watching in the video to see how to put it all together. Feel free to pause, rewind, take a break as you're working through it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I will do my best to answer them or find the resources to answer them for you. I hope you have a great time making this project and please share your finished results with us. All right, so our first step before we apply our stencil and start painting our actual design is going to be to stain our base wood. So in your kit, I've given you a little bit of basic brown acrylic paint. If you have stain at home, you're welcome to use that, but I don't have a lot of need to have just wood stain around. So when I have small projects like this, I found that doing a wash of watered down paint gives the same effect without the additional cost, since I usually have paint at home. So to make that wash, you'll use your container of paint, and really I've given you probably more than you could ever need, and we're gonna add just a little bit of water. So about a tablespoon of water to the paint that I've given you, and it's always better to start with less and add more as you need to. And we're gonna mix that up. I'm using a pen, but use a toothpick or whatever you need or want. And it's still pretty thick, so I'm gonna add a little bit more water here. So it's really almost like a 50-50 paint to water ratio here to get this wash effect. Okay, so I've got that paint diluted, and I'm gonna go ahead and paint on my sign. So we're using the foam brush that was in our kit, and we're gonna do just a quick messy paint of the top, and then we'll come back and do the sides, but just for the sake of the camera, I'll just do the top. Get everything covered, and then you'll take tissue paper or a paper towel. I had some coffee filters, so I'm using those, and we're gonna wipe off the excess. Okay, so I took it out of frame so I could wipe off the rest of that top. And then we'll do the same thing to the sides. Painting the sides and then wiping off the excess. And if you have white spots, you know, that you missed the paint, just use that extra paint to cover. Kind of make sure your corners, you don't have like that heavy dark corner where your edges meet. That cut edge is going to be a little trickier because it's not quite as smooth, so you might have to stipple it in there and then just work a little bit harder to get some of that excess paint out. And then again, finishing it off so you don't have, like here, that dark edge. All right, and then after I do the sides, I like to just do one more brush. If you wanted to add a little bit of more paint on it, you could add a second layer, but then just to make sure I don't have any like of my fingerprints on the edges where I was holding it. Once the color there is the way you like it, leave it and let it dry. So go ahead and pause the video now, go grab something to drink, come back. It shouldn't take too long because we didn't use a lot of paint. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes or so, come on back and I will show you the next step in our project. All right, my friends, welcome back. We are ready to move on to the stencil application process of our project. So in your kit, you had a stencil just like this. There are 3 layers here of what you see. There's a sheet of contact paper, clear contact paper, the blue stencil sticker, and then the white backing. So the first thing we are going to do is remove the white from the blue. And that's here we go. So the white from the blue, we're gonna peel it back. It's often easier if you put that blue side down and peel the white back like this at an angle. All right, so then you're gonna flip it over, adhesive side down, center it up on your piece of wood. And press down. I like to press the middle first and then press outward. And really work on, especially getting stuck down any of these center pieces here, like the center of the E, the center of our letters, and this part of the house. If you feel like you're not quite getting enough pressure with your fingers, if you have a credit card or an old gift card, use that to rub to press it down. All right. And then the next part here is kind of the trickiest. We have to remove the clear contact paper from the blue tracing paper. That contact paper was on there to make the transfer of our stencil easier. The contact paper held all of these little center pieces together so you didn't have to hand apply them. So I found my corner right here. I'm sorry, my hand's gonna be in your frame. But just like I removed the white from the blue, I'm gonna roll it at an angle and pull back. And as you're pulling, watch those center pieces to make sure that they're sticking down. So you're gonna take your time with this. Making sure that those center pieces are staying tight down on the wood. So I know this project is kind of tiny, but it's nice because it gives you good practice. You were working with a larger piece. This would be a little bit more challenging. And here you see that centerpiece did come up as I was pulling. So I'm just gonna put it back down, push it back down again, and then just more closely to that specific piece, pull back from there. So the smaller scale of the project gives you a chance to have better control over this portion too. If you were working on a larger piece, you could always take a scissors and cut away some of this excess too, just to make it easier for you to manipulate and handle. This is when I get impatient and just want to rip it off like a Band-Aid, but continue to go slow right to the very corner. Okay, make sure that's all stuck down, and then we are ready to start painting. Okay, we're ready to paint. So as I had mentioned, for my kit, I chose blue as my accent color. Your kit will also have white and it will have pink. You don't need a lot of paint, obviously, because we have a small project. And we're just painting a little bit. So I'm gonna work from the top down with my colors. And you can choose to paint your sign in any way you choose. If you want to just paint it all white, if you want to paint it all in whatever the accent color you requested was, you can do that. I'm gonna paint home in my blue color, sweet home in white, and then the heart in pink. So with my blue paint, again, you don't need a lot. I'm just gonna actually put the corner of my foam brush in there, and I'm gonna stipple around the stencil. So I have a nice even coat. It doesn't need, you don't want it to be like globby on thick, because then it will be more likely to bleed. Though your stencil, I'm sure, is stuck down really, really well. More paint as you need it. And I kind of like, I'll like dab like that just to distribute the thick paint and then spread it out that way too. So you'll keep going with your home, and then in my case, I'm gonna switch colors. You could wash out your brush. I have a bigger brush and didn't cover the whole thing in paint, so I'm just gonna go over to the other corner here to get some white and start on my next sets of words. And since I'm going to paint the house white as well, I don't have to be quite so careful about that that edge. But I'm gonna paint that pink, so I wanna make sure I give a nice border there for the pink to go into. So I'm going to finish, well, maybe I can get this all done while you're watching. If you're nervous about the edges of your stencils, you can always take some painter's tape or even just like hold a piece of paper there to give you a border so you don't go out into the wood. But the other nice thing about the fact that we used paint to stain our wood is that if you do get some paint on it, when you're all finished, you can take a little bit of extra of that paint and try and just kind of like buff it out, cover it up a little bit too. I'm gonna just take a look at my white now as it's starting to sit a little bit and see if there's any spaces that look like they might be a little bit light. And fill that in a bit. I think it looks pretty good. Flip it around and finish home. Okay, I think that looks great. I'm going to go wash my brush out really quick and then we'll come back and do the heart and then take the stencil off for the reveal. Okay, so I came back and I finished my heart in there and now we're ready to pull the stencil off. So we're not going to wait for the paint to dry fully because then we risk the paint actually peeling off along with the stencil. So just the couple of minutes it took for me to rinse out my brush and paint that heart was enough for Home Sweet Home to just dry just a little bit. So now we're ready to peel off the stencil. So just like our other two layers, we're starting in a corner and we're going to pull diagonally, very slowly across the piece. Trying to get as many of those solid pieces up of like the main stencil up kind of in one go as we can. And yes, you'll get paint on your hands, but it's washable. And if it rips like that, take advantage of it and just pull that section. This is the messiest part of the project, but also the most satisfying because that starts to be revealed and it just is so cool. Okay, so we got the majority off and you see I do have a couple of little white spots here, which I'm gonna fix with, I have a little bit of watered down paint here yet. I'm gonna put some paint on there like it never happened. Kind of cover it up. So you could do that if you had any little boo-boos. But what about all of these pieces here in the middle? So I happen to have a tool, kind of looks like a little dentist pick, specifically for this, but an X-Acto knife, like I said, would be really great, or a seam ripper. You just need something with a very low profile edge, because then what you're going to do is, like in the case of the M here of home, we're going to just kind of try and stick it under here to give us a lip that we can use to pull those smaller pieces out. And same in the middles. So like, can you see the M here? Remember our centers were empty. We're kind of gently trying to get under that stencil to give ourselves something to then pinch and pull. So you'll continue doing that with the rest of your stencil. So here we have our final project, Home Sweet Home. Tiny and simple, but I hope you enjoy and find somewhere special to put it in your home. You can seal it if you wanted to, but you don't need to. You could also, if you wanted to make it a bit more distressed looking, could sand gently over the letters. Other options as you're painting too, if you don't like the empty space in home, you could fill that in as well. One way to display this, I think that would be really cute, would be to put little hooks in the bottom here and use it as a key holder by your door. However you choose to display it, I hope you enjoy. If you feel so inclined, share a picture of your finished project with us on Facebook, and continue to follow the library and visit our website, kaukaunalibrary.org, to stay in the loop of all of our future programs, services, and events. Have a great night.